Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 43rd episode of By the Drip. This podcast dives into coffee, entrepreneurship, and the inspiring people we meet through the world of coffee. Today, we're excited to welcome John Gordon, barista competitor, coach, consultant, and one of the most respected voices in specialty coffee. And John has a super interesting story of how he got into the industry. He went from working in security to the world stage of coffee competitions, carving out a truly unique path along the way. In this episode, John shares his early experiences in hospitality, the pivotal moments that led him to the World Barista Championship, and his time working with some of the most important companies in coffee, including Square Mile. We also dive into the evolution of coffee quality, the importance of knowing your value, and why building community and creativity in coffee spaces matters more than ever. So please enjoy our conversation with John Gordon. Well, John, thanks for taking the time. How did you get into the coffee industry? What's your origin story? You've grown a lot over the last 15, 16 years you've been in the industry. So I'd love to hear the very start of your coffee journey.
The very start of my coffee journey was very much an accident. I think I was my kind of previous life. I guess I was in the security industry, and I really wanted to, I guess, have a bit of a career change. I felt like I'd done quite a bit in that side of the industry, and I've always been in hospitality. But then the security side was very much just a completely different life. I did crazy things like armed work, so carrying a gun around for a while.
You're talking like physical, like the guy with the gun going in to get the cash out of the bank or whatever.
Except we were plain clothes, concealed. It was a very interesting time in my life, but also did things. Started out in doing nightclub security and stuff like that. So it was very unusual kind of start to my hospitality career, I think. And
yeah, that's it. That's an unusual start.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. This is back in Australia on the Gold Coast, and things were pretty rough. But I kind of got to a point because I was running security teams and all this kind of stuff. And I got to a point where I wanted to do something else, but also at the same time, kind of utilize a lot of what I learned as well, and try and dive more into the management side of hospitality. And so I wanted to learn a bit more of the ins and outs. So I've worked in an alcohol shop or wine shop that was attached to a hotel that I was running security at, and just to kind of learn a bit more about wine and alcohol and things like that. And then on my off days, between the security and working in the wine shop, I'd be like a bar back in the bar to really understand the ins and outs of the bar and things like that as well. I really like when I want to learn something, I really want to learn from the ground up and every kind of aspect of it. So, and then wasn't long after that, moved to Melbourne, where I was originally born, and it was a little bit easier to kind of slot into management positions there. But even then, it was still, in the restaurant and bar kind of side of things. And at that point, I was offered another job at a small coffee shop in Melbourne, and it was, the offer was like the same pay as what I was getting paid doing all this kind of crazy work. So it was kind of a no-brainer to really start a bit of a switch. And at this time, this was around the time in Melbourne where Mark Dundon had started Saint Ali. And so on my I really started to kind of get intrigued about coffee because there was, I think that the pivotal point for me was at this little coffee shop. We roasted our own coffee, and um, we were doing a cupping. Again, it was one of those things I've never seen before or anything, but and it was literally an Ethiopian coffee that was natural. That was that gateway for me to to really kind of seeing that there was more in coffee. I grew up on instant coffee. My grandma would make us mugs of instant coffee with one sugar in it, and a bit of milk, and so this was definitely a big change. And seeing that something was so interesting about coffee. So on my days off, I would go to Saint Ali and look at this crazy menu and see all these things from different countries, not having any idea what it was about, and just would try anything and everything on the menu. And there was a little section outside you could sit where you could look right down the bar, and they had, one of the really early Sinessos. And again, I'd never seen this crazy, big stainless steel machine, and this guy was, just absolutely killing the bar, and then the whole latte art thing came out. It was just mind explosion, right? So I would sit there on my day.
What year was this?
Oh, it's got to be like 2005, maybe 3, 4, 5, something. Um, and yeah, all this stuff was mind blowing. And I remember being in the shop, working one day, and we had this guy that used to sell us tea, and and he had a coffee background, but he was selling tea in Melbourne. And he just asked if he could pour his own coffee one day, and he poured it, did the latte. Again, it was just, what is this like? It was just and it was just such a turning point from going from dealing with drunk people all the time to, dealing with heavy people and going, just want a coffee, and the whole um, regular base of people coming in, and it's just, it was it was a nice turning point. It was a nice change. It was, um, just something that really kind of grabbed my attention. And then I started to get a bit more curious about machines and things like that. I was lucky that the boss kind of, she let me once, I think it was a Mazda Super Job, just to clean it and kind of see how it works and things like that. I think it took me like an hour to put it back together. But all those little things just really started to ping. And at that point, my older sister had been living in the UK for a while, so I decided to, with my British heritage and British passport, decided to go over there for a while. And again, I was trying to kind of move more into the management side of things, but everything kept on drawing towards coffee. And when you look at that time, that was around, I think, 2006, 2007, and that was a real kind of pivotal point, I think, in the UK coffee scene as well. And there was some Kiwis that had opened, a couple of really interesting kind of coffee shops doing the thing their way. Then, James had won the World Championships as well. And at that point, I was working for an events company where we went around all around the UK, all around Europe, and we would set up coffee bars at exhibitions for whoever wanted to kind of serve coffee at an exhibition. So anything from pharmaceutical exhibitions to boating exhibitions to car exhibitions, or any kind of event. It was a really, really interesting job because it took me everywhere, like all throughout Europe, and to some really kind of crazy events, backstage at Glastonbury, I remember I did one job where we were set up in the pit area for Stoddard Racing, um, and at that time, Valentino Rossi, who was a superbike rider, had kind of changed over um, to rally racing. I'd been a Valentino Rossi fan since I was really young, and so I got to be in really cool scenarios where, um, I got to. Well, I didn't get to meet Valentino Rossi because I was too shy and starstruck, but I got to making coffee, which is cool. But things like Glastonbury, make coffee for uh, the Finn brothers from Greta House and Beyonce, Jay-Z, guys at Kings of Leon, stuff like that. It was a really interesting job. And at the same time, it was, some events we were doing like thousands of copies a day. So it was really, that's when I really got into latte, things like that. And what else? There was this kind of middle of the UK somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it was, but we did this. It was a 16-year-old girl's birthday, and the father was the family were like insanely wealthy, so they had this massive service tent on the property, and it was just a full-on event. And so we were sitting at the back. We barely made coffee, but they had this full show, and it was Mark Ronson and a whole bunch of other artists and stuff like that. So we just got this epic show, just the whole night, just sitting there making coffee every now and then. So really kind of crazy scenarios, but really, I think being in that point of some of the exhibitions were up to 5 days long, things like that. So you're making thousands of copies a day. That really kind of pushed things in terms of my development and understanding coffee and machinery. I started servicing machines and stuff.
And looking back, John, were you making like good quality coffee then, or was it more about the volume versus the quality? Where would you put that on a scale?
Interestingly enough, so we were majority of the work we've done on the Spaziales, and they're difficult to really pump out lots of coffee because it's a heat exchanger machine. You burn through the steam, or you pull too many coffees, and everything cools down relatively quickly. So you got to manage
Right. Yeah.
well. But also that kind of taught me how to temperature serve with flushing, things like that, because they always ran hot. So it was very much setting up so sometimes there'd be a few of us in the bar, setting up a bit of a production. But because I started to get obsessed with latte, like every cup had to have something on it and stuff like that. So I think
You had a bit of time because of that.
yeah. So we always tried to get the best out of the equipment. We had good coffee. We were so it was all coming from Steve Layton from Has Been.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
And it was. I feel like I've always been really lucky in terms of being introduced or surrounded by really good coffee at an early time. So definitely grateful for that. And yeah, those things were all kind of crazy. So then I started to see the whole competition scene, and then James obviously winning, and then one day, because the owner of this business had known James somehow, and James came around to the place to have a look at something. And again, that kind of starstruck moment of this guy just won the championships and blah blah blah. And then they set up Square Mile Coffee, and that year I decided that was 2009, and so I decided to jump in the competition, and that was a big step for me because I've never enjoyed talking in front of people. That's a big fear, So part of that exercise was to try and get over that fear of um, presenting and things like that. And again, kind of, blessed with having access to interesting coffees and interesting people like Steve Layton, who would just throw really weird and wonderful coffees at us. Um, and yeah, so I did the regional barista competition for UK, and it was, for me anyway, it was the most horrible experience that first time on stage. Um,
Oh no.
no,
What happened?
no, I had no idea what I was in for, really, because there wasn't a huge amount online back then to watch, and to kind of understand what the deal is, and having that fear of presenting. Like, I remember I had my sister and uh, brother-in-law come down and kind of watch what I was doing for a practice once, and I was so nervous just doing it in front of them. And yeah, it was just, and plus, so I think I used Indian biodynamic, so a pop natural and a natural, so blend, and that was
Okay, yes.
wild back then, right? Um, and it really, the judges really did not like it. So it was that was another kind of, I guess, kind of kick in the teeth in terms of, like, I wanted to just be really different, and I've never done things easy, obviously, but um, yeah, it was just such a different coffee that really rubbed the judges up the wrong way, and it was a bit wild. So, but I got through to the semis. I think it was. I think I ended up placing like 20th or something in the country after that. So, but you get the bug, right? So, not long after that, the one of the guys that I worked with, he was really good at latte, um, and he was entering the latte competition, and I thought, I'll do that too, just to get a bit more practice for next year, because I already decided I want to compete next year, and now that I kind of understood, a little bit about what's happening, and watched, that year Gwilym had won as well, so um, kind of seeing what he had done, and then going to visit him at the cart and stuff like that, and just really starting to understand coffee a bit better. And I accidentally won the latte comp, and like,
Oh wow.
the guy that I was working with, he was so much better than me too. So he was really, because he competing as well, so he was a bit jaded. Um, I guess because I'd had a little bit of experience with doing the barista competition, and so he kind of fumbled a little bit. And it was just, I kept things really simple, and stuff like that. I won. So then I got to compete in the World Championships for latte art, and back then, there was still an element of taste. So you took your own coffee, and again, I kept it real simple. Like, I wasn't trying to do anything flash or anything, but it was again, it was an experience of being on a big stage in front of people, and somehow I made it through to the finals, and I didn't do too bad, but we got sixth in the world, 2009 last competition. So,
Do you remember your pours? What designs you poured on the drinks?
because back there was you got to do the macchiato. I think I just did like tulips or something, and nothing like they do now. Like that stuff,
Yeah, now it's crazy.
it just didn't exist back then. Everyone was just doing symmetrical, um, uh, symmetrical ferns and tulips, and then my signature drink kind of was just in this big boat kind of thing, but it was really flat. But I just poured this giant
Right.
fern thing, and when I look back at it now, I'm pretty sure I've got photos of it somewhere. It was pretty bad, but it
Hey,
was
no one can take away that. You were in the finals. That's not a lot of people have made finals in both competitions, so you're one of the few.
yeah, it was and that definitely, like, getting, I guess, that confidence boost, in kind of understanding, okay, I can do this. And then I just started dreaming about, I just want to make the world once, for barista competition, and really, really started to obsess about it. I was literally dreaming about it, and over, that kind of constant, repetitive dream, and so then at that point it was, there was a job opportunity that came up with Square Mile as a delivery driver, and I was like, yeah, I'll do anything to work with James and Annette. It was a part-time job, so I was, literally cut my salary in half. Plus I had to travel like an hour and a half from South London to East London. And I was like, just do it. Just, sacrifice whatever to, and even James and Annette were quite, blown away by that. They're like, why would you want to come and do this? And I'm like, well, it's an opportunity to be surrounded by, leaders in the industry, and, a new business as well. And really start understand, because I had already kind of been around the roasting side of things, and understand about how a roastery works and things like that. So making coffee, and delivering coffee, from East London to Central, and I'd already done quite a bit of machine work at that point. So, and James had just started, looking at importing Cinessos, as well. And then it was that, this machine again that I originally saw back in Melbourne.
Yeah, right.
And so I got to start working on Cinessos as well. And we coupled time, and obviously, they were roasting, amazing coffee back then, and was just introduced to even more of those intricacies, back then, that just was feeding that kind of, what I realized, I guess at that point, was really feeding a hunger for wanting to, constantly learn and things like that. So, it was a great opportunity. It very quickly turned into, servicing machines, and doing a lot more in the roastery, and then eventually a little bit of roasting as well, and and so between that transition of between 2009 2010, and then starting the Square Mile, because I'd already decided so early to compete in 2010. I'd already been, working with Steve Layton on some coffees for the next year's competition, and I didn't want to stress that relationship, and we already had a coffee in mind that we wanted to use, and so I thought, how good would it be to use a coffee from Pitch Roaster, and it worked quite well, and I wish I had done a lot more with it, because I feel like there was a lot more potential to, I guess, really promote a bit more about that collaboration, and especially between two roasteries, and it wasn't really something that was seen back then. So yeah, but again, my routines were very basic and simple, and the storyline was pretty simple. And I remember, because there was like a 5-month gap, I think, between winning the UKs and, in 2010, and competing in the Worlds. And I remember watching Mike Phillips do his routine, because the US was always online, and I watched Mike Phillips, and he was doing the hopper change thing, and just like,
yeah,
I'm just going to do the best I can. He's going to win it without a doubt. Like, just watch that routine, and it was like game over. I don't even know what I'm going to bother. But it was that dream of competing at the World Barista Championships, and it was in London that year, and it was a great experience. Um, I don't remember anything about going on stage. I remember coming off stage going, did I do it? Like, did I mess up? Did I serve everything? Like, literally blank everything. Um, and yeah, so it was a good experience. I obviously got to meet loads of people as well, and yeah, there were a few other little things going on in the background, but it was really cool. And that was the first time that we were digging out scales to brew with scales as well. And I remember dialing in backstage and everyone looking at us really weird. What are you guys doing? Dialing in a recipe.
Yeah, that was the start. Like 2010 was the start of like scales coming into the industry. It's so interesting you talking about this because uh, Cole's first, like we remember watching Mike and watching that presentation and going, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And that's the first year he competed. And our first espresso machine was a Synesso. And it's just these funny things that, from 15 years ago, like temperature surfing. Probably half the people listening have never had to deal, as a barista, never dealt with the temperature dropping on an espresso machine and trying to figure out what the group head temperature was and how long you had to, not steam for, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like historically, it's really cool to like look back on.
Yeah, it was just such a kind of game changer. And I remember, like, we at Square Mile, like the whole wholesale program and things like that. We were very kind of strict, and I don't maybe not strict, but um, we had ways that we wanted to be able to make sure that put a lot of effort into the customer to make sure the coffee's always tasting good and stuff like that. So it was definitely a game changer in terms of being able to help customers produce good coffee as well. So um, that was it was a great experience. And again, like, and because actually for about 9 months I had these guys following me around camera doing this little documentary. And
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I know it was played on Air New Zealand way back when, and maybe one other airline or something. It's a long time ago.
Is it online somewhere? Can people find it, or is
No,
that
I'm not sure. I can't even honestly remember what it was called, but it was really interesting. They followed me for ages. We did trips up to Has-Been and practice sessions, all this kind of stuff. And it was interesting. But I remember, like, after it was out the front of the exhibition centre in London, and the guys asked me on camera, so they're like, "So, do you want to do competition again next year?" I'm like, "No, over, no, never again." Blah blah blah. But then, like 2 weeks later, I think they interviewed me again, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing it again." So
it always calls back.
yeah, it was. Because now I guess I got the bug for the Worlds, and I guess the driving force for that was I missed out on semi-finals by half. So yeah, so that was kind of I'm not saying, like, I know I definitely didn't deserve to kind of go to that next stage, because I think there was a lot more that I could have done with the routine, and I didn't. And I think that's just lack of experience and things like that. So, but if I had have, I think I remember looking at my technical score sheet, if I had have cleaned that up or done that one thing, I would have scored 1 point and then.
You would have been
So
in, yeah.
yeah, so off the back of that, I was like, it just didn't sit well in terms of I was so close. So yeah, I want to do it again, and the next year, I just want to make semi-finals. And yeah, so then I did the whole UKs again and won 2011, and then that year was in Bogota, in Colombia, and that was an experience. That was crazy, because like the stands were overflowing with people. So that was a whole nother again. Like there were heaps of people there, and just the volume of the noise and everything was just crazy, and that, yeah. So, and also being in Colombia as well, very very different experience there, and just yeah, there were people coming up. That's I met Doug the other day, and again, a very very different evolution, I guess, of competition and my own competition as well. Um, and yeah, got through the semi-finals and then made it through the finals, and then that was just, I exceeded my own expectations, so I was happy. It was like went into the finals, and I really didn't care where I finished. It was just like so happy to be there. I remember sitting on stage, I'd already set up, and watching Alejandro do his round in the finals. I was like, he's won. He's no doubt in my mind, he's won. It was so great to watch, and just standing there. And I was like, I had this moment where I was like, do I even bother doing my routine? Or because I loved the coffee that I had so much. It was a couple of different varietals from Tanzania. And I was like, do I just kind of serve coffee and have a bit more of a chat about the coffee and just kind of flag the whole routine altogether? And yeah, so it was a kind of interesting moment. And I did the routine anyway, and it was cool. The whole experience was really cool. Yeah, and that was again more of a big progression again with Square Mile as well. We had been doing up, found a new space for the roastery, outgrew the old one, and I'd actually been working on the roastery for about 6 months leading up to WBC as well, and yeah, it was like physically exhausted. I was doing like 7 days a week. I ended up moving to East London and lived right in the road from the new roastery, and so I was there every day, every morning, every evening. Back then it wasn't a case of sponsorship and all that kind of stuff. I practiced outside of work hours. So I did my work week, and if I was doing tastings or practice sessions or anything, it was always outside of work time. So long days and all that sort of stuff. And, but again, fun of like a real experience building and developing that version of Square Mile. And
did you know, John, at the time, did you know that Square Mile was turning into this like iconic brand, and you were a part of that? Could you feel that at the company, or did it seem day to day it's just things are going well?
No, definitely you could see it because you could see that through retail where the coffees were going. Social media thing really started to kick off then as well, and but then also the opportunities of travel that came up and things like that really, even it was oh my god, you work at Square, that kind of scenario,
Right?
And yeah, it was just such a cool thing to be a part of, and we were always like we really set up a really tight ship in terms of quality control and the developments that we made and how we do our QC, and how we roast our coffee and the efficiencies and all that kind of stuff. I'd been introduced to lean manufacturing, stack, Marco beverages, and again got obsessed about that. And James really let me kind of run with figuring out how we get the most out of our production facility, and tying in all the QC checks and all that sort of stuff. And we were always, because people, and another kind of interesting thing was people would always send us coffee too. So we would have
that's interesting.
Yeah, like coffees from all around the world, like was so spoiled in that sense. But it was actually a really good experience in terms of benchmarking where we're at with everybody else. And we used to do the same with loads of roasters in the UK. We, get all the different copies as much as possible to understand where we sit, to understand what other people are doing, and we were our biggest critics without a doubt. And we really fine tuned our team of palettes into picking up on the tiniest of whether it's roast defects or anything like that, and those minor adjustments every week, and the steps to actually make those adjustments and maintain the quality of the roasting, things like that. It was such a great experience to be a part of that, and that kind of intense quality of specialty coffee. And our team just grew, and the space grew, and we took on more space, and the learning more about green buying and all those kind of things, and then more and more doors opened up. The big door for me opened up for working with San Remo coffee machines and doing a bit of machine development and things like that. But just getting there.
And maybe talk about that transition. How did that kind of happen? If someone's listening, I don't know, what's some advice you could say to find your niche in the industry, and you've kind of been a part of so many different parts of the value chain here, and it's like, how do I as a professional find that, and then how do I get that opportunity to get out there?
It's not easy. At around the same time, that's when James had started working with Simonelli as well. So the two of us were kind of going in different directions. But I had been trying to get involved with Simonelli. We'd done loads of work with them. Laura would come over to London, and I remember we did loads of testing on the T3, really a T3 before it came out, and we were trying to break it. Previous to that, I'd been trying to do this little project with Scales built into an espresso machine, right? And I knew of the work that Marco, the guys at Marco Beverage Systems, had been doing with La Marzocco, based on kind of what they'd done with the Uber boiler, in terms of the scale, and because we did a lot of work with Marco as well on the Uber boiler, and at least understanding the different flow rates, and that was a lot of fun as well in terms of doing a little bit of development there with Marco, with the guys at Marco, and Sinesso were always really good to us, and really good to me as well, and so I kind of gone, well, I think there's something worth pursuing here. And I remember one of the R&D guys, Dave at Marco, I'd asked him about where the prototype had kind of ended up with Marzocco, because nothing had happened. Like, it was one built as far as I know, and no one did anything with it. And so I kind of picked his brain a little bit, and then started. I'd got hold of another drip tray, and we had been talking with the electrical engineer at Sinesso about how could we put this together. But I think the pivotal point in that understanding how that would kind of work was we were doing all this work with Laura from Nova Simonelli on the T3, and trying to essentially beat the machine or break the machine, or make it not work the way it was designed to work, and really kind of pushing the temperature changes between the group head and the boiler and things like that. And I just had a moment of, and I said to Laura, I remember saying, like, looking at the construction of the machine and understanding flow meters a lot more, and how the information all travels around and works and things like that. And I've been doing loads of research on load cells. And I said to Larry, couldn't we just basically take the flow meter out, use the same input for the flow meter into the load cell, and then obviously it's just programming the different way to read the analog signal to be able to read a scale, right? And so that obviously turned into something. And
yeah, on every espresso machine and almost every coffee shop in the world.
Man, look, so I tried everything I possibly could to work with similarly, and there was a particular someone within that company who had so the words were, so I was like, I'll do work for free. I'll fly myself to Italy. I'll do anything just to get into R&D and working with machines, and really started to think I found my kind of niche of what keeps my brain going. And I was told, unfortunately, I'm not sellable. I'm not James Hoffman. I'm not sellable. And although we know you're capable, and you can do all that kind of work and the ideas and all that sort of stuff, but you're not a marketable person. That was pretty, big setback to see that somebody would see that marketing would take precedence over somebody with good ideas that could really actually put value in a project or in a development phase of something. So a bit of a kick in the teeth, but at that time I'd had San Remo down my, breathing down my neck for like 6 months. And this same person had said, because it was a bit of it was not the greatest experience, but I wanted to be involved here, but I had these other people wanting me to be involved here. And the same person had said to me, don't do that with San Remo. They don't know what they're doing. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you don't want me. These guys do. So I'm going to take this and see where it goes. And yeah, it was for 9 years. It was, I put my whole life into that company. Everything from the development to running the teams to all the shows around the world to restructuring their factory facility, introducing them to lean manufacturing. And so that was a great opportunity in terms of being involved, but I really underestimated my own self-worth and things like that, and kind of just because I just wanted to be involved. That's all I cared about. So I kind of almost basically worked for free for 9 years.
If you could go back to yourself, what type of advice would you give to yourself at the start of that kind of next chapter?
You have value, and to be fair, I've only realized that this past year that don't underestimate yourself or undervalue yourself. If people are coming to you for something, there's value. There's value. Like, you have value, no matter what part of the industry you're in or what industry you're in, full stop. If you're hungry and you're passionate and you work hard and things like that, there's value to that. There is value to that. And I guess understanding and drawing a line of what you're willing to do for the love of it, and then also what you know your value is worth, and at least requesting that value be replenished, or there's some sort of remuneration behind that, so that it doesn't get to a point where you just feel like you're doing all this stuff for free and somebody else is actually getting a lot out of it. And yeah, I struggled with that for pretty much all my coffee career.
it's such a hard balance. And it's like you're saying, you got to get your foot in the door. Sometimes you got to do that for free, or do the hard work for nothing, or for no dollar value back. But it will, once you're in the room, you gotta step up and tell them what you're worth, and show that through your past results. I think that's the big thing. I think if Cole and I coached for 12 years and I didn't make a cent, and now I finally charge money for it, and people on various levels say like that's good or bad, but it's time, energy, and we got to drive value out of that. We can't
time
do it for free forever.
Is worth money. And yes, we can give our time and our knowledge to other people to a certain point. I was running myself into the ground and trying to obviously do normal work, and then go around traveling everywhere, doing all the shows, and just thinking that eventually there's going to be an end goal here that does benefit me, but I want to put a good machine out into the world. I want to be a part of seeing. I love seeing, whether it's one person or a big company, I love seeing people and companies progress and be successful, and it brings me a lot of joy anyway. So when I say I didn't get anything out of it, yes, I was getting lots of non-financial things out of it, and then also that exposure and getting to meet so many awesome people, and again, kind of delving more into lean manufacturing and those concepts and things like that, and like almost every year, Full Stack would send me something to do with manufacturing processes or design processes and things like that. And he always seemed to send me that thing at the right time. I don't know whether or not he knows this, but it would just come out of nowhere, and it might be a bunch of documents or something, and it's at that perfect point where I needed it, and so I really just shoehorned my way into what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be a part of, and was able to impart so much of that onto many people within San Remo, the design engineers and things like that, like how to design a machine differently, in terms of really factoring in how it's built, how it's serviced, the efficiencies behind all of that. Buying practices for parts and those kind of things, and then down to the factory floor, like how you understanding the assembly process and pre-assembly. Like we with the small change, the first machine that we'd done, the Opera, I mean, it was it had a lot of issues, and there was a lot more that could have been done with that machine, but it was a consuming build. And just with the changes that we'd implemented, the build time was cut in half. And quality control then was easy, like it was a lot easier to implement those kind of things there as well. So then moving that on to when I designed the Cafe Racer, everything at that point had kind of gone into that. So how you design a machine, the process of it, the way it gets put together, that was all factored in as I designed it, and within 11 months of that machine being a sellable product, it flipped the business. Like I think the numbers were roughly around so they had they increased revenue by, I think it was 35% or something like that, but their sales numbers were reduced by about 25%. So they were selling a lot more of the higher end machine and less of the lower end kind of single boiler heat exchanger machines, things like that. And you could see the change in the factory as well. So the staff were a lot happier because it wasn't a stress to just pump out these machines. So they were building less, and they were more comfortable, but they were making a hell of a lot more. So that was, to me, that's I feel like that's one of my biggest trials in the background, is being able to see that company grow and change from no one knowing who they were in 2010, 2009, 2010, because they were the UK distributor had sponsored the UK Barista Championships. So that was kind of my introduction through them. So, and then going to all the shows and all that sort of stuff. So utilizing my kind of point of where I was at in the industry as well, of being able to go on a booth in SCA or any of the shows in throughout Asia and stuff like that, and getting people to come and see what we've been working on. That was a big deal. And to the point of 2018, when DeLonghi decided to throw some money in there, and it really built that company up to a valuable point and a visible point for somebody like DeLonghi to look at them. So,
have you done a count? Sorry, John. Have you done a count on how many items you've kind of like worked on throughout your whole career?
But yeah, I have. But I have learned so much. Like all the work that I've done with Achaia, I love how they their R&D process and things like that is really cool, and the speed that they work and stuff like that. It's, them as a company, I really love them. So I've done a bit of work with them, done a bit of work with Market, which is a bit of work with Synesso. I remember doing, because in the UK we only imported the manual machines, so we never had any volumetric Synessos. And we started to get customers kind of wanting it, but they didn't want the box kind of thing at the front with the buttons and whatnot. So I started to work on being able to put buttons in there on a manual machine, some modifier machine. So had been playing around with that, and it all worked out really well. And then, not long after that, MVP Hydra kind of.
Oh yeah, the Hydra. Yeah, that's right.
So that was really cool to kind of see that that change as well. I've done loads of work in grinding and bits and pieces, a lot of kind of analysis stuff with Malconic in those early days. Obviously on the EK, I built the first Mini. I was at the factory and I saw a really, really old version of the EK, or a different grinder, and it had this tiny body. I was like, can I just get that? Any chance that there's still a template, or there's old parts around or something like that? And it turned out there was. But I'm like, no, it's not going to fit, it's not going to work, blah, blah, blah. Just send me the part and I'll make it work. And I made it work, and there was plenty of space, and I made my own portafilter holder thing and put in these just like little vibration modules, so that I could press the little button on the side and walk around and kind of shake everything into place. And yeah, that's how the Mini was born. And there's a few things in there that,
man, your influences on so many things. I didn't know that. That's really cool. We're butting up on an hour here, so we got to transition. I want to hear what are you working on right now? I know you've just announced something pretty cool. Maybe give the listeners and viewers kind of a background, how you got here, what you're doing, and
so the last 10 years for me has been a lot of consulting and things like that, and especially the last couple of years have been on the technical side of helping roasters, because on this side of the world we really don't get much help in terms of roaster maintenance or servicing. There's no technicians here, literally none in New Zealand that work on roasters. So it's, everyone using an electrician and gas guy to do bits and pieces. We really kind of get left in the dark here. So I've been wanting to, do whatever I can to support roasters in New Zealand, and there are a few different ways that I've wanted to approach this. And an opportunity came up to, I guess, do it in a bit of a different way, and so we're going to open up a bit of a showroom, kind of a functioning showroom, like mini, micro, nano kind of roastery style coffee bar, so to speak. A little bit of training, technical services. You'll be able to come in and roast your own coffee, or we can roast coffee for people. Come in and just grab, a takeaway coffee, or come and sit down and relax and enjoy something different. We'll have a little bit of automation kind of in there, and a big, we're working on putting together a big catalogue of green coffee as well. So you'll be able to come in and either get something unusual that's already roasted, or grab some green coffee to take home and roast, make up your own blend, or sit there and have a coffee while, your particular bean that you might want roasted a particular way is roasted for you, that kind of stuff. So they're very kind of community driven as well. Like, we're doing events. The space will be nice and open for us to, and not just coffee events as well. So we want to kind of bring in creatives, whether it's a gallery opening, an exhibition or something like that for somebody that's got some new artwork, or furniture, or even to the extent of like poetry readings, all that kind of stuff. We really want to get people that are around Auckland, and even outside, bringing people from other countries to be able to do different things and offer a bit of a different environment, but at the same time still obviously very coffee focused. And there's two other partners that will be involved in this. Between us, we've got, like, I think it's almost 90 years of hospitality and coffee experience.
Oh, wow.
Which, it's crazy, right? So we want to be able to utilize that to provide a really strong and powerful support for the coffee industry, and to really promote that kind of growth and understanding a lot more about coffee, especially now with how things are going with green coffee as well. Like, really explaining to the coffee people, but also the consumer, about why are prices going. I think there's too much of a disconnect there, especially here in New Zealand, where yes, the prices are going up, but we're just not explaining it well enough to get people to really understand why it's happening and why the prices are going up. And you've got media outlets that are kind of fluffing things to a point where it's really not making sense. So, fear mongering people into either changing their buying practices or not drinking coffee at all. So, so that's all the work that I've kind of been doing in terms of technical support for roasters and design, all that kind of stuff, all rolled into one space.
Wow. When is it expected to open?
So it all depends on a bit of machinery that's arriving. So end of June, start of July, we should be good to go.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So kind of, midwinter for us, but I think it's kind of nice to do a bit of a slow rollout and, get everything functioning how we want it to function. So at the moment it's just demolition, and then we'll start putting in a couple of extra bits and pieces, and a whole lot of painting and stuff.
Yeah, it's exciting to see kind of the work come together at the very end. How's the entrepreneurial journey through it been? Is it stressful? Is it, with three partners, that can always be great to lean on the resources, but you can butt heads. And how's that been?
So far, not too bad. Like I'm a very numbers focused person, so I've been working on the kind of concept and the financial side of it and forecasting that for quite a while. And we've been looking for a space for like 9 months, and so it's I'm not too stressed about that in terms of like I know what we need to do, and I also know that things take a little bit more time to kind of take off here. Hence why we're kind of doing the showroom. People to come in and experience what these things are before they're really kind of released out into the wild. And again, it's like it's the last 30 years of my life that is really molding into one spot. And all of those things that I've done have been, absolute value to, I think, implementing what we want to do, and then also executing as well. And like, we come up with a bit of a term a little while ago. The next wave of coffee is, I think, anyways, it's not about coffee. It's about business. We need to understand the numbers so much more to be sustainable and just to survive, really. And there's not enough of that going on in small coffee roasters and cafes and things like that, where we're not understanding the true numbers and the true value of what it is that we're doing. And more businesses are shutting their doors. So we need to understand down to the cent of what we're doing to really make sure that it works. So again, a lot of all that kind of work will be part of what we're essentially providing people as well, in being able to help them be successful without having to do it.
I think, yeah, that's super important, because it's sometimes business or profit or income statement in our industry is seen as like a negative thing. And what you just touched on is, if the numbers don't make sense, none of it matters. That's what, it comes down to. So I think shining more light on that is really important, and having healthy coffee businesses, when we're talking like super small individuals and cafes, roasteries, producers everywhere, is we need to do more for that, because I think our industry, especially at the cafe level, is we see someone else do something and then everyone kind of follows to that trend, regardless if the numbers make sense or not. And we need a healthy ecosystem where, not gouging, but everyone across the whole value system is making a bit of profit that makes sense for everyone. And right now, it's for some roasteries, it's very challenging. So we'll see. And you highlighting and providing support is like a huge value add.
Yeah, and it goes across every part of our industry. Like, talking with Cole the other day about how Forward is working, and like there's so much more of this that we need to put more emphasis on, put more time in, push a lot harder on making sure that everybody is making money. That's the reality of it. If you're not making money, then there's other ways that you can survive and live that are less stressful. And we know that producers really struggle, and they're making money, most of them once a year, and it's not easy. I mean, we can kind of complain about things from this side of the industry, whether it's cafes or roasteries and things like that, but try and put a farmer's shoes on and see what they're dealing with, and then go back to your own business and really kind of understand how lucky you are and fortunate you are to being in the situation that you are, and just do better. Like, understand more about what it is that you're doing, and the effect that you have on the whole chain of our industry, and even down to the marketing side of it, and what we're communicating to our customers and to the general public. Like, there needs to be more transparency about it, and more honesty, and some some deep seated morals in terms of how we behave and how we act.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have the answers. We're trying to figure it out, every day. But yeah, I love the idea that you guys are doing. It sounds like it's exciting. It's needed, and I want to transition a bit. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I generally don't like talking about myself, so it always makes me feel really uncomfortable. So I like to really, talk about. I mean, talking about, I flew up to Kerikeri, so it's like a 50-minute flight or something up north yesterday to help these guys out that have bought into a business, and they've bought in a second-hand roaster because they're roasting one batch an hour, and this whole thing that it's terrible, but they're doing good volume. And like, for non-coffee people, or not manufacturing side of coffee, no background in that sense, like, even though the space was really not set up ideally, like, I was blown away by the data capturing that they do, the structure and the understanding. Like, they're the other extent of it. They know business really well, and that information that's valuable, and what they can do with it. I haven't seen that in this country. So yeah, like, it was really refreshing yesterday to see a business focused, but also they're doing the best they can in terms of quality, and everything they can deal with, and yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I love. It's really exciting to see, and that to me is proof in the pudding in terms of how they're communicating the changes in the industry, and what they're actually doing to make their lives better and more sustainable. They're watching the numbers really carefully, so it's really nice refreshing to see that side of the work that I do with some of these small businesses and some of the big businesses. Not really that different in the end. Um, but yeah, that's about it. I don't think there's nothing else for me to talk about myself.
No, I got 5 more minutes. I want to go to the personal side of you, John. I remember I have this like recollection, 2018, the first. I didn't meet you at this moment, but it stands out in my mind. It was at WBC in Amsterdam, and we're in the finals. You're in the finals. We're in the finals, and you were getting ready to go on stage in an hour or two, and you were. If people are listening, John, you've been hearing John for the last hour, but shaved head, big beard, lots of tattoos. From afar, you look very intimidating. The second you talk to you, you're very sweet and a really nice guy. But I was watching you, and you were sitting there, and you were just staring off into space. And I asked you like what you were doing, and you're like, "Oh, I'm just meditating." And it's just ingrained in my, every time I hear your name. That's the vision of just someone focused, mentally strong, getting ready to go conquer the world. Looks like a big tough guy, but is I don't know if I should say teddy bear, but just a great guy. So that's so I want to lead that story into what are some things that people perceive of you. That was my perception, but what are things that people get about you wrong?
Yeah, that I'm scary, and it's I've come up with this quite a bit in my life and not really realized or understood it. And a friend of mine, Dove, who I coached in 2019, he, because I'm always saying, I don't understand it. And he's like, yeah, people are just absolutely terrified of it. I'm soft, man. I even like back in my security days, my mum always says, she still doesn't understand how I got into doing that work because of my personality. I'm gentle. I'm soft. Yes, I can get angry when I need to be, but yeah, like I'm, you know, I'm kind and loving, and I just want to be helpful to people. So yeah, it really, like, even to the point of one point years ago, after hearing it kind of a bit more, I was like, right, I'm not going to wear dark colors. So, I changed my wardrobe into whites and lighter colors and all that sort of stuff. Um, I mean, I've got more tattoos, so it kind of doesn't really. Um, it's, I'm not scary, and I want to have those conversations with people. I don't want people to be afraid to approach me and have that any conversation. Ask me a question. I'm always like, send me a message, send me an email, give me a call, whatever you need. Um, I'm there just to support and to have a conversation. Uh, yeah, like
No, you're such a sweet guy.
They're not going to say that I'm scary at all. So way too soft on kids. So, it's that misconception it kind of breaks my heart a lot as well. So, okay, if you see me, come and say hi.
If you see John at a show, go up and say hi. Give him a hug. He's just a big teddy bear. Come on, people.
Give me a hugger. Like, without it, I'm a hugger. So, yeah.
Outside of coffee, where do you go to get inspired? What kind of recharges your battery or fires you up that has nothing to do with coffee?
Cars and motorbikes and tattoos. Like my cousin, he's an amazing artist. He's a tattoo artist in Melbourne. He did all this recently for me. But his artwork as well is just unbelievable. I love seeing talents like that. I bought him his first tattoo machine. He was first starting out. I think it was his 21st birthday. Because his artwork was just mind blowing. I was like, this talent needs to be fostered. Like, and so we were always kept in contact, even when I lived in London, all that sort of stuff. And I've just seen his. I would stop into Melbourne if I was, a lot of my trips. I would always end up having a bit of a stop in Melbourne before coming back here, just to see how he's doing. I love his artwork. I bought pieces of his just to support him throughout his career. Like that. So tattoos. I follow a lot of tattoo artists on social media just to see the creative side of something that I think is just, how do these people do this on skin? It's insane. And motorbikes and cars, motorbikes especially, that's where the design for the Kevin Racer, the inspiration for that came from. I've got this big motorbike book, and it's just all different custom bikes from around the world. And so a lot of those things, it really inspired me with a lot of different design things and stuff like that. So aside from that, like any engineering stuff, like, I'm obsessed with, like other industries and things like that really do things differently. Yeah, it's what I love really diving into.
How many tattoos do you have?
I've got two on my legs. One is like a real version of a griffin, from the Square Mile logo, and then the other one is a phoenix. The griffin is obviously an ode to obviously what Square Mile as a company, as a brand and everything. What they gave me, I think, was really important. Griffin was definitely a change in my life. And I've got, that's a new one. bit of a cover up because my very first tattoo that was there was really bad. Got that when I was 18 to upset my parents. My gorilla. Forgot my kids' birthdays.
That one's on your hand. That one's very cool.
Yeah, so that's this gorilla. So this artist in London. She's got a very unique style. And I'm obsessed with gorillas. So it's been a lifetime thing. So my kid's birthday is on my knuckles, my hand. More blackout on that side. A bit of Japanese on this side that my cousin's going to finish off. Big one on my back, which is a really special one. It's so, again, this was done by a different artist in London that was around the corner from Square Mile Roastery. And it's two people, a man and a woman, sitting there having a cup of coffee, sharing a cup of coffee. Back in the days of, it was kind of inspired by the whole Penny University thing that we did in London a long time ago, that era of coffee houses throughout London, and back then the women weren't allowed to drink, be a customer, be a patron of these coffee houses. It was there for men to be able to talk business, and share their thoughts, and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to kind of do something that was a bit of homage to the English kind of coffee scene and all that sort of stuff, but then put a spin on it, because women in my career in coffee, women have been such a the teachers for me. And that taught me how to roast. My ex-wife also taught me how to roast and used to coach me for roast competition. And one of my favourite producers, Ada in El Salvador, was a big influence on helping me understand more about coffee and farming and producing, processing, and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of break that mold of what, still play homage to coffee in the UK, but also to those influences in my career as well. So it's a man and a woman sitting opposite each other, sharing a coffee, and at the bottom of it is two hands shaking, and then there's a little penny coin at the bottom there too.
Oh, nice.
I always forget it's there. And I think that's it. Yeah. For now, anyway.
Yeah, the tattoo people, you're always getting more. I'm one of the few, I guess, baristas that doesn't have one.
So my cousin did that when he was an apprentice. It says Baidan, which is Scottish. Our family's, it's on the crest of our thingy. It means steadfast. That was a little bit of a thing. It was nice to have it done by my cousin when he was really still coming up. So that's the.
Well, John, thanks so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you online?
So I'm on Facebook. Search for Facebook thing, but Instagram. I'd probably do more on Instagram. And that's changed to, I think, _John Gordon. And that was kind of a funny one to just change it to that, because every now and then somebody will come up and go, "Oh, you're the John." So it's kind of it's a bit of a joke, really. So Instagram's probably the easiest one.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to the new shop center opening in the next couple of months. And if you're someone in the maintenance, design, coffee competition, you should reach out to John on social media. He gets back to you. Just a great guy. And thanks for your story. It was awesome.
Thank you.